Hello and welcome to the Football Hipsters podcast. It feels like we're in your ears every day of the week this week, doesn't it, boys and girls? Well, I do apologise, but there's so many things to cover and so many leagues to preview. And today is the turn of coming back to the old English side of things, because today we are going to preview this season's 16-17 Premier League. Okay, we might even touch very, very briefly on the Scottish League. But before we go into that, I have to say right off the bat, 4 became 3, 3 became 2. So I've just joined by the one this evening. I have dragged Ross away from the Championship for a special Premier League preview pod instead. So welcome back, Ross.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
It's a pleasure. We should just say off the bat, we were hoping to have our good friend Simon Collins with us originally, but unfortunately he works in the fast-paced world of football journalism and has unfortunately had to work today, so he's not been able to join us. And wouldn't you just know it, Ali has also been struck down with a virus, so we can't welcome Ali Beg back either. But I'm sure, and I promise, we will have them back throughout the season. And hey, me and Ross is good enough, isn't it?
Yeah, we'll do fine.
Oh, we'll be all right, won't we? Right, let's crack on then, Ross. So we've got 20 teams to whip through and lots of ins and outs transfer-wise. We've got lots of changes in managers. We've got all sorts to get through. So we're going to start at the bottom and work our way up. So drifting back into your area of speciality, the Championship, we had 3 teams that obviously came up last year to replace Aston Villa, Norwich and Newcastle. The champions of the Championship last season were Burnley. And they're back in the big time. What do you make of what they've done this summer? And do you think we're going to see kind of what we got from Burnley last time, i.e. well organised, disciplined, strong at home, all the usual cliches?
Absolutely, yes. I think they'll be a little bit better as well, because this is generally what happens when teams leave the Premier League. They go to the Championship, they spend another year with the same core. They add in a couple of very clever signings. They come back up stronger. And not only is the team a bit better, the cohesion and the understanding between the players is a lot better. So I'm hopeful for Burnley this year. I think they're going to be the Bournemouth of this year because of the organisation they'll now have under Sean Dyche, how used they'll be to each other and the playing style, etc., etc. So I like the look of Burnley. The transfer business doesn't surprise me because Burnley are not a club blessed with loads and loads of money. I also don't think they needed a great deal. The biggest concern for me is they lost Joey Barton on a free transfer to Rangers, and the 3 they've brought in, one's a right winger, one's a right back, and one's goalkeeper. So they haven't really replaced that midfield marshal they're going to need. Obviously, there's still time in the window if they can find someone brilliant, but I think they'll be touch and go for survival this year. But out of the 3 that have come up, I personally think Burnley are in the best position.
Interesting. Yeah, interesting. I'm not sure everyone would think that without knowing anything, so to speak, without knowing about the league. I think everyone just assumes Burnley, small club, no money, blah, blah, blah. However, from no money, blah, 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 let's go to Middlesbrough, because apparently they got lots of money. Now, you touched on our EFL podcast, which if you haven't listened, boys and girls, do go and have a listen, because you will learn a lot, I promise you. You mentioned that you fear for Middlesbrough. They've made a lot of big name signings, maybe a bit strong, but they've made names. They've made named signings, players that you're going to likely know a bit about. Victor Fisher at Ajax, I know you think highly of him. We'll touch on him in a second. But Barragan from Valencia, Victor Valdez, Gaston Ramirez, I believe that's a free transfer done now. Alvaro Negredo is probably the big one. So why do you feel Middlesbrough have gone down this route? Is it to try and get the crowds back up? Because it hasn't exactly been populated, the Riverside, for a while, has it?
I mean, it might be. That's a fair shout. It might be. I don't really know why they have gone this direction, because I think that the direction they were going in during the Championship years was better for them. If you remember as far back as when they went down from the Premier League originally, they rebuilt their team a good 3 or 4 times over, and they've had Tony Mowbray in there, and I can't think of who was in there before. Aitor Karanka now, but they've had so many different iterations of Middlesbrough over the past few seasons. The one that really worked for them is the one we've seen over the past 2 years, which was quick counter-attacking football. All of the front four were very good on the ball, very technical players. And now it seems we've shifted gears, and now it feels like it's a bit of an MLS team to me. It's got all the star names in it that they hope can do it again. So I'm fearful that they've changed the style a little bit too much. But that is also not to say that it can't work. You know, Victor Fisher is a player that I think is going to fit that front four very well. Gaston Ramirez did very well on loan at the start of this year, so having him on a permanent is a great move. Victor Valdez is still a solid goalkeeper. We didn't get enough of him at Man United, but he can still do a job. Alvaro Negredo is anyone that really concerns me because I'm not sure he really fits in with the style, but at the same time, considering the talent they've got around him, he could end up bagging 10 goals, 15 goals and being a revelation for them. So I am kind of torn on them, and it still wouldn't surprise me to see them overachieve a la Watford last season. But for me personally, I think that the Middlesbrough that I know was the best version of Middlesbrough to survive in this Premier League, and what they've done with the transfer business, I think for me it's just kind of rocked the boat a bit too much. I think it's a bit too much of a facelift. I just don't think it's going to be solid enough. I also think they've done enough at the back, by the way. The back was the big problem in the Championship. They could score plenty of goals, but they dropped far too many points because they just couldn't keep them out of the back. So for me, I just think this is a team that has gone the wrong direction. But I'm hopeful for them. I still hope they can prove me wrong. They were a very good and attractive team to watch in the Championship, and frankly, they've been away from the Premier League far too long. So it would be fantastic to see them prove me wrong and stay up.
Yeah, it will be interesting. I know people joke about this, about my obsession with kits, but I have to mention Middlesbrough's kit again. I just don't get that white sash around the bottom. It just looks so silly. The away kit's really smart. I just don't get it. But that's just me. Also, information came out today. Jonathan Woodgate has left Middlesbrough to join Liverpool
Yeah.
as a scout. Bizarre.
Yeah,
Just,
didn't I read he's covering Portugal? He's scouting Portugal.
I believe so. I believe
that
so.
rings a bell. Yeah, I don't know how good he is at scouting players, but yeah, that one came out of left field today. So there you go.
Yeah, that's very, very odd. But
then again, he did get that move to Real Madrid, so it's not like he's not used to strange, bizarre moves that no one saw coming.
That is also true. Yeah, he'll probably get injured on the plane, but yeah, that is interesting. I like. I do like a couple of the signings Middlesbrough got. I think Valdez would be a decent addition, and Barragana, I think, has always been a fairly solid fullback at Valencia, and as you said, Victor Fisher's good. Martin de Roon, I know myself and John Welsh from the main pod, big fans of him at Atalanta. Didn't realise he's actually signed for 12.75 million. That's a lot of money, but he's a very, very good little player. So I think you might see good things from him. He says, sifting through his dream team selection. Moving on, more on that later, by the way. Let's look at the other club that came up, and this is Hull City. Now, again, in the EFL podcast, we did touch briefly on the Hull situation, or lack thereof. Has there ever been a club almost more favourable for relegation pre-season than this? I mean, they just look a bit of a mess to me. They got Zola in now, haven't they?
They approached Zola. Since then, I haven't heard a thing. I don't know if they've actually got him. I don't know if he's turned them away, but they definitely approached him, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I will do in the consummate professional I am, I'll do my research whilst we're recording live. But yes, currently Mike Phelan is still the interim coach. So as of time of recording, 11th of August, interim coach is still Phelan, and that's what they've got. So, and I guess that's what they'll have at the start of the season.
It wouldn't surprise me if that's who they have by Christmas. Honestly, I think they'll probably stick with him.
I think you're absolutely right. What do Hull do? They've got a squad depleted by injuries. They're short of numbers. Seemingly, it's a club completely up in the air with regards to being sold or kept. No manager. I mean, what on earth do they do?
The only other club I could think of that was in a situation even comparable was Crystal Palace when Tony Pulis walked away a week before the season. That's the only other club I can think of off the top of my head that was in anywhere near a comparable situation to the one Hull are now in. I should stress, it does not surprise me whatsoever that Steve Bruce left. It was rumoured at the end of the season in the Championship. My understanding was that if he didn't go up with Hull in the playoffs, he would have left anyway. So it doesn't come as a big surprise. The timing of it more than anything was the surprise, because he just had the England interview. It seemed like he was happy to stay there before that interview. As soon as he was declined and Sam Allardyce got the job, suddenly it changed. But at the same time, I don't know if that was just like the final straw. I don't know if the England job was Steve Bruce's way of saying, I'm done here, but if I can get this, brilliant. Because the transfer business, I think, is what really did it for him over the summer. They just have not spent anything, and I understand that because I think the owner is obviously looking to sell, so he's not really going to be that interested in putting money back into the club, so I understand it. But I think Steve Bruce would have looked at it and said, we're not ready for this, we're not good enough for this yet, we needed more money to invest in the squad, I'm not going to get it, so what am I doing here? That seems to be the way it's gone. They've also lost Mo Diame to Newcastle, who I think is a very, very good player, and I would have been much more confident in Hull if they'd have Diame back in the midfield. So I can't see past them for relegation at the moment. We of course know that there's rumours about takeovers and stuff still going on, and we've still got a few weeks left in the window. So if the Wolves takeover can demand 7 to 8 new signings in 5 weeks, then if a new Hull owner comes in and they can get a decent manager in, then who's to say they can't get the 3, 4, 5 players that the manager's going to want to try and keep them up. So as of time of recording, they're favourites to go down. I can't see anything other than imminent relegation for Hull. But between then and the final day of August, who knows? Who knows what situation we'll be in?
It sort of stinks of trolley dash, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It does. One thing I think we have to say, in just summing up the 3 teams coming up from the Championship, I think you would probably agree, or maybe not, but we shall see. They all need to get off to a good start, in my opinion. I think it's getting. I don't like Hull's chances of doing a mad trolley dash at the end of September when they've already lost the first 4 games in the bottom of the league. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think that's the same for Middlesbrough. I think their home form, as is Burnley, is going to be vital. Karanka, obviously, I think experienced at European level, but he hasn't had any Premier League experience yet, other than I think he was briefly at Palace, wasn't he? When they, did he? No, he never took the job, did he? So, I just think they have to have good starts to get anywhere comfortable, and I don't fancy any of them for a comfortable top table finish or mid table finish, to be honest.
No, I think they'll all have periods this season where they will struggle, but I think the only one that I think personally that will be able to stem that tide is probably Burnley, because of the unity they have around the place. The other 2, I think, just have a bit of a soft underbelly. So, I mean, I could be proven wrong, and I'd love to be, because the more Championship teams that can survive in the Premier League, the better it is for the players that have come up and the teams that have come up, in my opinion. So, I have no problem with it, but there's just too many problems, I think, at Hull and Middlesbrough.
Yeah, I agree. Okay, so that's the Championship sides that are coming up to the Premier League done. Let's have a look at some of the teams that narrowly escaped the drop last season. Let's start with Sunderland, because they obviously have had quite a change this summer, losing Sam Allardyce to the world's most in-demand job, not the England job. They brought in David Moyes, which I think is probably a steady, sensible appointment, given his sort of track record. He's openly said that he needs signings. I believe he's got Papadjilavogien from Chelsea, which I can tell you he's a very good defender, but never got a chance at Chelsea. So I think that's a good signing, particularly if they can keep Lamine Kone, who I naturally rate very highly, being an ex-Lorient player. He's also brought in Paddy McNair from Manchester United, who's a player you'll obviously be familiar with, and the brilliantly named Donald Love, also from Manchester United. Other than that, it's a bit quiet. There's been quite a lot of outgoings. Sunderland, what is their expectations, and do you think Moyes will be under pressure if they don't get off to a good start?
It's a tough one, because the team that Sam Allardyce inherited was relegation fodder, and he hardened it up and he kept it up. The Sunderland side that David Moyes has picked up is essentially the same one, really, isn't it? Lamine Kone at centre-back, who could be going to Everton if the papers are to be believed. Outside of that, I think it's roughly the same sort of team. So I'm very torn on Sunderland. I think they will still be down there, but at the same time, I like David Moyes in these kind of situations. I didn't like it at Man United. I didn't like it at Real Sociedad. But I fancy him at a team like Sunderland, where he's going to be punching above his weight, and he can play the quote-unquote boring style of football that did so well with Everton, and just kind of push them up step by step, and then incorporated new attacking players in and kind of took them on to the next level. So I like him for the Sunderland job. Is he going to do better than Sam Allardyce? I can't see it. I think they'll be in for another year of struggle. They did need to address problems at the back, but aside from Gilabodji, have they done enough? I don't think Paddy McNair is ready to start week in, week out. I don't think Donald Love has even had a game for Man United. If he has, it's been substitute appearances. So I don't think they've done enough so far, but they'll be interesting case study. Personally, I think it's more about David Moyes than it is Sunderland. I think for David Moyes, it's a good chance to rebuild himself. But Sunderland, I think it's probably going to be more of the same.
Yeah, again, I do agree with you there. And do you think that's just looking at that Sunderland sort of ins and outs, and looking at the squad they've got at the moment, it seems to be a real lack of creativity in that squad. It doesn't seem to be too many players that you'd back in. It's sort of what I call a midfield 10 position. Somebody, because you've got Defoe, who's always going to get you goals because that is what he does basically.
Only creative player I can think of is Khazri.
Khazri is
there
the
anyone
one.
else?
I'm just looking now. I mean, Kirchhoff is more defensively. Seb Larsson's best days are probably behind him. Mavrias, the lad they got from Greece, has never had a chance, who I actually quite like. Jermaine Lens is probably your next best. Yeah, but again, he's more of a wide player than a creator. So, and Fabio Barini, of course, who's still apparently got a football career, amazingly. Jordi Gomez, could there be an argument? But 31 years of age.
He's a championship talent. He gets loaned there every single season. I don't see him any higher than mid-table championship.
No, and it's not a big squad either. They're quite defensive heavy now, Sunderland, but just not with too many very good defenders. So
yeah, I'm just looking at that team now. If you lose Kone, I'm not a fan of that. Gilabodji could probably fill his shoes, but then you've still got to put it with Kabul, O'Shea, or Kirchhoff. And Kirchhoff had a good end to the season, but I was still never overly impressed with him. So yeah,
I think realistically, I think if you looking at what you've just said there about David Moyes, about his sort of defensive qualities and being able to set up a side not to get beaten, if you're putting Papa Gilabodji and Lamine Kone as two centre-backs together, not too much is going to get beat them in the air, put it that way, because they are both monsters. So, if they can maybe harness their... they never played together in Ligue 1, but obviously Ligue 1 is quite famous for being a quite defensive league. I think if you maybe pair two players with that sort of experience of the French league, then maybe they'll be onto something. But yeah, I don't know.
Honestly, that strikes me as a team that needs relegation. That looks like a typical team that needs to strip away some of those players and reinvest and build a bit more properly, because to me it seems like you've got shards of 3 or 4 different windows, 3 or 4 different team ideas that haven't come together. That's what that team looks like to me, having looked at it on paper. So, yeah. I mean, I still don't think they will go down, but I think they'll certainly be a club that, if they do go down, would benefit from it.
Yeah, absolutely. We shall see. And speaking of teams that, must admit, almost what you've just described there could almost sum up West Brom rather well, in my opinion. They've also been, they've still got Tony Pulis in charge. They've been busy. I don't know if busy is the right word, really. They've done a little bit of business in this summer window. Under Tony Pulis, you know what you're going to get. Not a lot is the truth, but the 2 players they brought in, Lecco, who you could probably tell us a bit more about, because he's a young up-and-coming talent, which I think a lot of people are going to be talking about. And they've also gone for Matt Phillips from QPR. Outgoing, though, Victor Anichebe on a free, which surprised me slightly. Stefan Sessegnon also on a free, which again slightly surprised me. So it's not a lot of business. They are being linked with quite a few players still. They've been linked with Christian Benteke, of course, today. So is again Tony Pulis a manager who might just have an eye over his shoulder if results don't go his way in the early weeks?
Yeah, I was about to say this one screams of the Wolves takeover to me. They've obviously, West Brom have just got some new investment. I can't think of the guy's name that's taken them over, but they've now taken over West Brom. He said he's going to invest in the squad, but it's not going to be too excessive. They're going to buy prudently, etc. The deal they got across the line, Matt Phillips, happened well before this takeover, so we're still waiting to see what kind of chairman this is going to be. I do fear for him, because he is a quote-unquote dull manager. You hire him to keep you up. That's the point of Tony Pulis. The noises coming from this new chairman are that they want to push them on to the next level. They don't want to just stay in the Premier League anymore. They want to try and push on. So to do that, you're going to need it to either change the style, or you're going to need heavy investment from the owner, so that Tony Pulis can bring in a team that's going to be even harder to beat. And you can have all the money in the world, but I don't think Christian Benteke is going to be interested in going to West Brom right now, unless they change Tony Pulis and get in someone a bit more exciting. So West Brom, again, I think of them much like Hull. You won't know until the end of the window. They could very easily tomorrow get rid of Pulis, bring in someone like, I don't know, Zola off the top of my head, and completely change the tactics and the approach. If they stick with Pulis and they try and invest slowly, then they're going to be in for another long, hard season, I think.
I'm completely with you on that one. Completely with you. And the chairman, Chinese entrepreneur, I believe it's pronounced Goshan Lai, is it? Or Lao? I presume. LAI. Good job, Danny's not here, isn't it? But yeah, he is the new Chinese owner of West Bromwich Albion. So we shall see. He's the controlling shareholder of Shanghai Sports Development Limited. So there you go.
Just on Jonathan Lecco as well. He had a quick run out at the end of last season. Looked quite impressive. That was the first time I'd come across him, but you do your research when these people pop up, and he apparently has a good little track record in the under-21s for West Brom. Is well thought of. Tony Pulis is apparently quite high in him, and he's got to be if he's going to put a 17-year-old into the Premier League starting 11. So expect to see a bit more of Lecco. I wouldn't see him starting every week, but certainly see a few more substitute appearances and bleed him in slowly.
Yeah, bags of pace, direct and tricky and skillful. Reminds me a bit of Balassi, actually, who we'll touch on later on. But yeah, we shall see how that young man develops. Let's hope he doesn't go down the Saido Berahino route, which, again, at time of recording, is still a West Brom player. For how long? Open to debate. Moving on then to our next club I'm going to pick out. Who shall I pick out next? Let's go for Swansea City. Another side in sort of transition. Quite a few players have moved on. There's still a lot of talk that a few more might be going. The likes of Ashley Williams, which I don't think has gone through at the time.
Ashley Williams has gone. He has gone.
Oh, it has gone. Ah,
Yep.
Okay. I take that back. So he's gone. They've also lost the likes of Adair on a permanent deal to Lille, which I don't think they'll be too disappointed about. Leroy Fer has come in. Fernando Llorente has come in. That's an interesting one. Also, Borja Baston, which I believe was announced today, and that's quite a big signing, nearly 15 million.
Replacing Andre Ayew.
Yes, indeed, who of course gone to West Ham for £20 million. Borja Baston, Atletico Madrid centre forward, who's been on loan for memory. I can't remember where he's been on loan. I'll have to look that up. He was on loan last season, did very well wherever he was. But those players going out for Swansea, Poloski lasted 6 months. Williams, as you say, confirmed now gone to Everton. Ayew, a big part of the success last season. Are they going to feel that? Gomes is another one. Didn't have a great season, but was a good player for Swansea. So are they going to feel that pinch come the next season under Guidelin?
From what Tom tells me of Borja Baston, maybe not up front. Depends how quickly he acclimatises. The impression I get from what Tom has told me is that he's going to be the new Michu. He's going to have an amazing season. Hopefully he doesn't burn out like Michu did. Fernando Llorente, I think we all know, is a good striker. Can he do it in the Premier League? We don't know yet, but I would imagine he can. Leroy Fer from QPR is well versed in the Premier League. I think he'll suit the Swansea style quite well. The only issue I've got at the moment is Ashley Williams going, because he's been there since 2008, 2009, somewhere around there. I think he's only missed about 200 minutes of football between 2008, 2009 and when he left. I think I read the stat. So Ashley Williams is a big personality to lose. He's a big player to lose. So there's still a couple of weeks left in the window. The roundabout will still keep spinning now because Everton lose Stones to Man City. They take Williams on, and now Swansea needs someone. It'll be interesting to see who they go for. Please, not Jose Font. It'll be interesting to see how they address this problem they've now got at the back. If they can do that, then what's stopping them moving up the table? I was never Guidelin's biggest fan from what I saw of him last season, but he's built a Guidelin team now, so let's give him a fair trial. Let's see how he goes. His most pressing issue right now, they will obviously need to be Ashley Williams.
Again, I think that's going to be a big miss, as you rightly say there. And just on Borja Baston, I can give you, he was at Eibar last season. 36 games, 18 goals. Not bad.
Going, is it?
No, he's been with the Atletico system since 2009. Come through the ranks, had spells at Murcia, Huesca, and Deportivo La Coruña, as well as Zaragoza, and then obviously at Eibar last season. So 23 years of age as well. So I think it's a bit of a shot to nothing, and to see how he turns out. So we'll keep tabs on him. I'm sure Tom will be across him on a regular basis. That sounds a bit wrong, but you know what I mean. So we'll keep an eye on that, and we'll keep an eye on Swansea. Let's pick on another team then. Let's pick on. Oh, who should we pick on now? Let's pick on Watford next, because they're another team. Once again, there seems to be so many new managers this season. It's crazy. Watford have gone for the experienced and highly disciplined Walter Mazzarri. And as an Inter Milan fan, I can tell you that he will not stand for too much. Very interesting quotes he gave about smoking, shall we say, green the other day in his press conference when asked about whether he would let players unwind. Do look up those comments. Our very own Simon Collins tweeted those. Have a look at those. But he is a famous disciplinarian, Ross. He's quite a strong personality. Obviously, there's this deal with Watford and Granada and Udinese. Do you think maybe his knowledge of the Italian market will help with the owners and maybe just make the relationship a bit stronger than it was under Flores?
It's a possibility. The ownership of Watford is not something I'm fluent in. I know that they own Granada and Udinese, and there's a lot of trading between clubs, as it were. But Watford seem to be the one they're focusing on the most, I imagine, because they get the most money out of them. I have to admit that he is not a name that I'm too familiar with. You'll know far more about him than I do. But if he's as disciplined and as defensive as you say he is, then it strikes me that the ownership is more interested in keeping Watford up than pushing them on. And I would also have to say that if he is as disciplined and defensive as you suggest, then that doesn't really suit the Watford style. So they will be an interesting one to watch. I couldn't imagine they'll be easy to beat. You know, if he's meant to be a defensive-minded manager, and he's surely got plenty of experience of setting teams up like that, he'll make Watford difficult to beat. But that was not what was appealing about Watford last season. You know, that's not what was appealing about them in the Championship. That's not what did them so well at the start of last season. It was quick counter-attacking football. It was Igalo and Dini. The back line was just, as long as it kept a goal out every now and again, it was all right. So, yeah, I think that's a strange match. But at the same time, we haven't seen it in play yet. So let's give it a chance.
Yeah, some very interesting times ahead, I think, for Watford, because I think a lot of Watford fans, they were very split, weren't they, on Flores? They were very Kike Sanchez Flores, sorry, very sort of unsure. Some said football wasn't very entertaining. Others were like they loved him. And funny enough, I know a Watford fan. He was gutted that he went. I think it's because he just brought some stability. Whereas you look at the pre-season and the signings, I mean, Jerome Sinclair is actually one I actually think will do really well. He's a player I've liked for a while in Liverpool's academy, and I think he might do all right.
Depends if he gets the games, though, doesn't it? They have got some very good midfielders and attacking midfielders.
Well, that's true. Yeah, that is very, very true. I also like Jajaj, he's one of these classic fullbacks, better going forwards than he is going backwards. I have to say that much. But yeah, they've done some business. Success is another one that big things will be expected of, else he will be deemed a failure. Ha ha! Quick. Sorry, I couldn't resist. Quick, he's a press officer's dream, Russ. You must know this.
Oh yeah, but he also plays as Southampton Football Manager, so I think he's fishing.
That's what it is. He's an agent. I have to tell you one very brief funny story about Walter Mazzarri at Watford. He once fined the Napoli captain at the time, Hugo Campagnaro. He fined him a week's wages for cutting the calves out of his socks.
Ah.
True story. So there you go. He's not one to be messed with, I think it's fair to say.
Why would you cut the calves out of his... Okay.
It's something Campagnaro has always done. I don't really get it. I'm sure he'll tell you it's for ventilation to his calves. I would just say it's some kind of superstition or... Yeah, very
style.
odd.
Yeah. That's an odd one, but there you go.
So, some Argentinian players are known for being a bit crazy, so interesting. I'll leave that one there. Right, let's move on to another team then before I get sued for slacking off Argentinian people. Let's move on to Stoke City, who are another club who I can't call. I really can't. You look at their squad and you go, not a bad squad. Good players. Mark Hughes, pretty decent manager. But I don't know. I'm not convinced, especially how they fell away so massively last season. So where do you sit with Stoke and particularly on their business this summer?
Stoke, I think, are a very comfortable Premier League side these days. I like the way they do it. They're not the rugby club they used to be, but they're still not the tiki-taka style that a lot of Stoke fans were hoping for, which I think is exactly where they need to be, because that's not the Stoke way. That's not the way the players are set up. The only bit of business I can really think of them doing is Joe Allen from Liverpool, which is a great piece of business, especially after his summer at the Euros. I think he's a very good fit for Stoke. The only other one is the guy from Egypt, isn't it? Ramadan Shobi? I don't know how to say his name.
Yes, we'll go with that.
Yeah, stick with Sobby. But I think he's only like 19, 20 years old, so I don't know if we should be thinking of him too much this season. We'll have to see how he goes. I don't fear for Stoke. I don't worry about them. I think they'll finish in and around 10th again. They will have another good start to the season and push that top 10 bracket. Then they'll have a bit of a wobble around Christmas, and then they'll stabilise, and then they'll finish in a nice, comfortable mid-table position as far as I'm concerned. They just seem to strike me as a very steady club that can weather the storm, as it were, during a Premier League season. So I'm not too worried about Stoke.
They've been, in my opinion, they've been a lot quieter this summer than I thought they'd be. I know they obviously spent big on player escapes me, Porto lad in January.
Oh,
who was it? That's the one. Yeah, spent big on him in January, so that you would think that would have affected their market in the summer. But only bringing in, as you say, Sobby, who's fairly unknown. Joe Allen is obviously the big one, but even then, it's only 13 million. And then Ryan Sweeney and Steve Sidwell's returned after loan, and then he went back to Brighton, I think, on a free transfer. So, not a lot of business done there. It really surprises me, if I'm honest. But maybe they're just lying in wait to pick up some late deals. But it'd be interesting to see how they get on. Let's talk about Bournemouth next, because they're obviously a team not too far away from where you are. Again, another club with a very sought-after manager in Eddie Howe. A lot of talk that he could be potentially an England manager of the future, if not now, and obviously has decided not to pursue the option now.
Don't want to mention he's a possible Arsenal manager.
No, well, oh God, don't go there. Memories of Owen Coyle will come rippling back. But they've, again, spent some money, haven't they? Jordan Ibe is the standout. I'm going to have to say gamble, 15 million quid from Liverpool. He hasn't done anything to justify that yet, I would suggest. They've also got Brad Smith from Liverpool, who I actually thought quite like the look of, particularly in that FA Cup run last season for Liverpool. Nathan Ake has joined on loan from Chelsea. At least Mousset, should pronounce it correctly, from Le Havre, who I can tell you could be very, very decent. He got a lot of goals for Le Havre last season, 5 million for him. And Lewis Cook from Leeds, who you will know a bit more about than I. So what do you make of what they've done? Bournemouth shipped a few out as well. Matt Ritchie leaving to go to Leeds. So are they in a good position as they were last season, do you think?
No, I think they're weaker. Matt Ritchie to Newcastle was a big loss. Tommy Elphick to Aston Villa is a big loss, especially Tommy Elphick. I didn't see either of them coming, but the one that surprised me the most was Tommy Elphick, because he's a very good captain. He was a very good character to have around at Bournemouth. I think they'll miss that. I don't think they've done the kind of business that I would have expected, considering who they've lost. I don't think they've really replaced Matt Ritchie. Jordan Ibe is the closest they've got, and I think Jordan Ibe is really going to settle in at Bournemouth, and whether they stay up or go down this year, I think Jordan Ibe can have a good 3-4 year spell at Bournemouth and really kick on. So I don't see that as a problem move. But Matt Ritchie brought you a bit of an X factor. The amount of special goals that he scored last season, and even in the Championship on his way up through League One from Swindon, he was an X factor player, and I don't think they've replaced that. Lewis Cook is a good player, and he's going to be a very important squad player going forward. He could even be a future England international. He's just that highly thought of. But is he going to be the Matt Ritchie for Bournemouth this year? No, he's 19. This is his first year in the Premier League. He's not the same kind of player. So I think they've lost. It's not like they've lost overly brilliant players. They've just lost certain aspects of their team. You know what I mean? They've just lost something that I don't think you can replace very easily. So for me, I think Bournemouth are in a weaker situation. That doesn't mean that they won't stay up. They've still got the same manager in place, the same style. They work very well as a unit. They've got a lot of plus sides, but I just think they've lost a little something that helped them last season, and I don't think you're going to be able to see it from Nathan Ake, Lewis Cook, Jordan Ibe this year. So I said on the pods last year that I worried about second season syndrome for Bournemouth. Having seen their business, I am worried even more about second season syndrome for Bournemouth. Yes,
I must admit they are one that worry me slightly. I mean, not to the point where I lose sleep, but yeah, as a side that do like to play things the right way and they've got good fans and all the cliches that go with it, I would like to see them survive again, just for the little guy. But like you, I do have concerns. Goal scoring is, yeah, I think
I
that's an
think
area.
I think the thing for me is they've only got to be better than three teams. And last year that was easy because you only had to be better than two teams because we all knew Aston Villa were going to go down. This year there's no absolutely guaranteed cert until the end of August when we know what's happening with Hull. So they've only got to be better than three other teams. The issue is, I think they are just as good as some of the teams that have come up. I don't think there's much of a gap between the Middlesbrough side that's come up and the Bournemouth side that's now going to be tackling the Premier League this year. So I think they're in a very difficult little pocket. But at the same time, of the teams that are going to be in the relegation race, I would still think that Bournemouth would have a certain edge about them.
Mm. Yep, fair comment. Fair comment. We shall see how they progress up the league. But for now, we'll leave Bournemouth there. Let's move on to. Do I want to do West Ham now, or do I? Yes, let's do West Ham now, and then we'll come on to a subject I know it's close to your heart with two teams. So, what do we think of West Ham?
I don't like West Ham. Oh, you mean as their business? Oh, I see.
Do you know what? I have to say, and I apologise, I think it's Mark, one of our West Ham fan listeners. He might be the only one, to be fair. West Ham, first team I ever went to see my beloved Arsenal against West Ham back in 1994. The first live game as an adult, unaccompanied by an adult, shall we say. And I loved it. The grounds, Upton Park, obviously they've left, which we can touch on in a second. They're now at the Olympic Stadium. They've talked the talk, and to be honest, I don't know whether it's West Ham I dislike now, whether it's just the people that own them, and some of the way that their fans seem to think that they're suddenly this big powerhouse. Because I don't know about you, but I don't really see like much has changed.
No.
Again, talk the talk, really haven't brought in anybody. Andre Ayew is probably the big one. I would suggest. What do you think of their business and the way they've gone about this business, because it reeks of arrogance without any real substance?
Yeah, that's the issue I have with West Ham. The club, fine, no problem with the club. A club is just a club. So I didn't really like Rotherham when Steve Evans was there, but as soon as Steve Evans left, I got no problem with Rotherham. It's just certain aspects, certain iterations of clubs you just dislike. The current iteration of West Ham really rubbed me the wrong way, and it's not because Bilic is a bad manager or because they've got bad players or because the fan base themselves buying into something that's not being sold. All clubs have fans that think too highly of the club, and etc., etc. My issue is the message they project and the way, especially that the chairman talks to the media and the way that the club media is run as well. That winds me up hugely. You look at their business; it's good business. All of them that I can see are good, smart pieces of business. I don't know all the players, back to front, but I know Nordvik is a very good player. I know Faguli is a very good player. I know Andre Ayew is a very good player, and I know Manuel Lanzini is a very good player. I don't know about Jonathan Kaleri and Arthur Masuaku, I think is his name. The
Masuaku, yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Ashley Fletcher is apparently going to be a prospect. I didn't see him a lot in Man United. I can't think of a substantial loan that I can recall him from. So, he's another one for the future. It's steady business. If you put that business with any other team in the Premier League, you go, yeah, that's fair enough. The issue is that they started off this transfer window, and the chairman came out and said, "Oh, we're going to go and bring in X amount of players. We've just put in £30 million for a striker. You'll never guess who it is." And then we found out it's Lacazette, and we found out Leon laughed it out the door. So, for me, it's not the team, it's not the way they're set up. If I just watch West Ham, I have no problem with them. It's as soon as they leave the field, I turn on Twitter, and their Twitter feed is hailing Payet as a king and better than Messi. It just the messages that come out of West Ham just give it the wrong aura, I think, and it may just be me and you, it may be a handful of other people, or maybe we're just mad. I don't know, but West Ham, as a club, fine, no problem. The business they've done is good. They'll kick on. They'll do well again this season. But they just do wind me up on occasion with some of the stuff they do from their media department, and the chairman especially. They just get on my wig so much.
Yeah, it just reeks of chairmen who've made their money from pornographic material and lingerie, doesn't it? I mean, it's just like you just couldn't write the script, could you? And I always, when I see David Gold or David Sullivan, I always think they're going to sell me a watch, even through my TV. I just yeah, and I'm just not. I'm with you. I'm with you. It's almost like a set of fools and horses with a football club built in the middle of it, and I'm just not sure I like how they go about things. But I agree with you on the pitch. Massive fan of Bilic. I think what he's done has been fantastic. Brilliant pandit, by the way, in the Euros, and yeah, their business. I'll tell you the one that I will keep an eye on. I'll call this now. I'll put my head on the block. Gökhan Tor, the free or loan fee signing from Besiktas. I think he's going to do very, very well. Very, very good player. I think he's one to keep an eye on. So I'll put my head on the block, and when he fails miserably, I'll hold my hands up. But I think he'll do all right. So that's West Ham done. Let's now move on to something close to your heart, and we're going to almost group two clubs together here because we're going to give you an opportunity to talk about Southampton, of course, but we're also going to talk about Everton. Now, you listeners to this podcast and our English breakfast will be familiar with the fact that you are a Southampton fan, and you had a certain manager who goes by the name of Ronald Koeman. I'm just going to put the reins over to you here, really, because obviously Koeman departed your beloved Southampton this summer and went to Everton, and so the story commences. So I'm going to give you the floor and just let you rant, really.
Yeah, well, let's start off by stressing that rant is the wrong word, because I'm not angry about the Koeman situation. I think it's important, though, for people to get the actual story, because the story that's presented in the media is that Koeman was offered a lot of money and off he went. The version of events that Koeman will tell is that Southampton weren't ambitious enough, so off he went. The truth is vastly different from that, and it's a long, interesting story that I think is worthy of telling. I had a couple of people when we were covering the Euros as well asking me about the Koeman situation, so I'm glad to finally be able to give you a bit of insight. I should stress that the Koeman story that I know, the one that I believe in at least, did come from a fan forum. It is from an ITK. I normally take those with a pinch of salt. The issue with this one is that I have had 3 months at this point to triangulate it and compare all the bits of information that came out in this story. Not only does it correlate with everything that I knew at the time, everything that I knew last season, everything that journalists were coming out with at the time, beforehand and during the storm when he was moving to Everton, it also fills in all the blanks far too neatly and intelligently. There's very little in this that I think you could make up. So for me, it's watertight. I can't see any other way of it being, a fabrication. So if you're an Everton fan, you don't have to believe it, because I understand Everton fans won't like it. Southampton fans, we believe it anyway. And the neutrals, take it for what you will. If you trust my opinion on it, then it's valid as far as I'm concerned. I can't find anything to discredit it. So the Ronald Koeman story, and I'll try and keep it short, but there is a lot to say. The Ronald Koeman story goes as far as we all know that Koeman's contract was set to run out this season, the 16-17 season. And if you watched any of his press conferences last year, if you read any of his quotes, whenever he was asked, it was always the same answer: not going anywhere, I will be here for at least the end of my contract. My favourite was I wouldn't even leave for Barcelona. All the journalists that were in the room with him believed his words, had no reason to doubt him. And it was just set in stone that there was no way that Ronald Koeman was leaving. Even when the Everton interest first came up about a month before the end of the season, he literally laughed it off in a press conference, and I'm sure you can find the clip somewhere. Literally laughed off the interest from Everton and said, "No, I'm staying at Southampton." So how did we end up with Koeman at Everton? The story goes that the season closes at Southampton, and the board at Southampton and Les Reed, Ralph Kruger, etc., sit down with Koeman, offer him a new 3-year deal, makes him the highest paid manager in Southampton history. My understanding is there was a clause in it as well, which might interest you, Kris. There was a clause in it that it was a break clause. If the Arsenal job became available at the end of the 16-17 season, Koeman would have been allowed to leave and activate this break clause for him to go and take the Arsenal job if he was a candidate for it. So it was a very generous offer. It was one that Koeman verbally agreed to, and everyone seemed happy with it. Ronald Koeman then went off on his first holiday of the summer to leave his then agent to dot the I's, cross the T's, get it all printed up so he'd come back, sign on the dotted line, and go back on his second holiday. Now, while all this is happening on the south coast, of course, further north of Merseyside, Everton have a new chairman by the name of Farhad Moshiri. My understanding is that his original pick for Everton manager was Unai Emery, who is obviously now gone to PSG. So I don't know the ins and outs of the Unai Emery move. I don't know if he had wind of the PSG move beforehand or what it was. But either way, Unai Emery falls through. And Moshiri says, okay, we've missed a one, but I'm not missing a second time. So his second target is Ronald Koeman. Everton then get in touch with Koeman's then agent and say, okay, here's what we've got. We've got £100 million to spend on the squad. We've got £6 million a year in wages. What does Ronald think? The agent says he doesn't think anything. He's verbally agreed to a new contract with Southampton. He's not going anywhere. It's already done and dusted. So, move on. Farhad Moshiri doesn't like this message and decides to go via a new agent by the name of Rob Jansen. Now, Rob Jansen is a name I wish I hadn't heard of, but my understanding of Rob Jansen now is that he is a bit of a, not conniving.
Shark.
Yeah, I suppose that's relative. I suppose that's the message I'm trying to put across, but I'm trying to be PG about it. So
I'll call him a shark. It's fine.
Okay,
I'll take the rap.
In Kris's words, he is a shark. And he approaches Ronald Koeman directly and says, Everton have got this offer for you. It's £100 million to spend on the squad. It's £6 million in wages. What do you think? Ronald Koeman then gets on the blower to his current agent and says, is this true? His current agent says, yes, but I rejected it because, you verbally agreed to this contract to Southampton. I've been in these press conferences when you've said I'm not going anywhere, so I turned it down. And Ronald Koeman gets angry and sacks him and replaces him with Rob Jansen. Now, the reason Koeman is upset that his agent didn't tell him is because Ronald Koeman is of the opinion that his standing at Southampton is such that if this Everton deal was revealed to the Southampton hierarchy, they would go the extra mile to keep him at Southampton. Now, when Southampton say ambition, when they say progression, they mean prudently. We mean to spend, for example, as this summer, we mean to spend 25 million on the squad so far, and then let 60 million go. You make 40 million profit, you put it back into the squad, you bring up the youth players, you do it all in-house. Southampton want the Barcelona model of 75% of the youth team to be the first team at some point in the future. So for us, it's very much in-house. Ronald Koeman's idea of ambition, because as we all know, he covets the Barcelona job and wants that more than any other job. His idea of ambition is, let's get the players in, let's go win cups this season, let's go challenge for the Champions League this season, give you more money to spend on the squad. So aside from the fact that he wants to get some more money out of Southampton, he also thinks that his standing with Southampton is such that we wouldn't want to let him go because he was very popular with the fans. He was always very honest and approachable. His media presentation was always impeccable. Everyone liked Ronald Koeman. He was an icon while he was here at Southampton. He also, of course, let's not forget, got us 7th and 6th in the Premier League, which was very impressive considering Pochettino got us 8th, and we didn't think we'd improve on that. So to get 7th and 6th, incredible. So Koeman then goes back to Southampton with his new agent and says, you know what, this deal was great, but Everton have now come along. This is the ambition that I'm talking about. So either you give me some more money to spend on the squad, or I'm going to go to Everton. Now, Ronald Koeman thinks that it's going to be easy from here. Southampton, on the other hand, say, fair enough, if you want to go to Everton, you can go to Everton. The reason being, and I spoke about this on the pod before, I even mentioned it back in January when we went through that awful spell where we only won 1 in 11 games or something. Southampton have their problems with Koeman and the way he was running training sessions. The story goes that he wasn't running sessions for long enough. He wasn't getting as proactively involved in sessions as we want our coaches to get involved with. If you look at Claude Puel these days, you can see our media videos. He's running around on the training pitch doing passing movements with the squad. Koeman was never doing that. The one time he did do it, he did break a bone or a metatarsal or whatever it was, but that's a side note. So Southampton have a problem with his training methods. There's also a problem of apparently giving the club a lot of time off, giving the players a lot of time off. I don't know how true that is. That's one thing I do doubt about this story, but that's another rumour. Squad disharmony. Sadio Mane was very vocal about being upset with Koeman at times. Dusan Tadic apparently had fallen out with him. Graziano Pella had fallen out with him at the end of last season. There were a lot of players in the team that thought they could never do enough to hold down a place in the first team, and I'm thinking of players like Shane Long, I'm thinking of players like James Ward-Prowse, Cedric Suarez, these players that you'd see do brilliantly for us for a good game or two, and then they'd be gone. You'd see them missing for game after game after game. The big one was the apparent cut-off between the pathway from the under-21s to the first team. Like I say, that's something that Southampton are very proud of, that we want to push forward. And when we were in discussions with Koeman, we said we wanted more under-21 players pushed forward. But it seemed like every time an under-21s came through, I'm thinking of Matt Targett, Harry Reid, they'd get maybe a game or two, and they disappear again. Under Pochettino, we had Shaw come through, we had Sam Gallagher come through, and we had Harry Reid and Matt Targett. Under Koeman, disappeared. So Southampton essentially say, fair enough, if you want to go to Everton, we've got our problems with you, that's fine. If you want to go to Everton, no problem. We'll go find a new coach who will buy into our ethos more appropriately. While all this is breaking, and this is the key point, while all this is happening behind the scenes, you have to appreciate that on the streets of Southampton, all the fans know is that the honest, true Ronald Koeman, who 2 months ago laughed off interest from Everton and said, I'm staying no matter what, is now being offered a shed load of money and is having his head turned. So it is fair to say I have never seen opinion change so quickly on a manager as it did with Ronald Koeman. You think of Louis van Gaal and his time at Man United, you think of even Arsene Wenger at Arsenal, all these managers that antagonise parts of their fan base, it's usually gradual. Ronald Koeman went from zero to hero inside a day. As soon as it broke that this Everton thing had legs, the city of Southampton turned on him like that. It was vitriolic the next day. So at this point, the situation for Ronald Koeman is either sign your deal with Southampton and try and rebuild your relationship with the board, who now know that you didn't really want to buy into it all, and we're trying to use a bit of leverage on them, and then have to rebuild some fences with the fan base. Or you go to Everton and take on a job that, it's an okay job, you'll get the money to go and do it how you want to do it. But my understanding from day one was that the Everton job was always leverage for Koeman, and that's the bit that Everton fans won't like, and I understand that. But my understanding from day one is that it was something to exert more from Southampton. It was a job he was happy to take, but only if Southampton, decided against it. And he didn't think there was any way Southampton would decide against it. The other option was, of course, for Southampton to turn around and say, well, fine, if you don't want to be with us, you don't want to go to Everton, then we'll just put you on gardening leave. We'll screw everyone over. You can go and do whatever you want for a year. Everton can't have you. We'll go get a new manager in. We'll carry on. So Koeman then goes off on his second holiday and obviously decides that Everton is the only choice he can make. So that's, from what I understand, is the truth of the Ronald Koeman move. His first press conference at Everton, he came out and said that Southampton put a 3-year deal on the table and said either sign it or leave. Kind of what happened, but it's very, very cherry-picked. That's just the end of the story. I think the quote that's more appropriate from that press conference he gave was when he was asked if he was going to go back and buy any old Southampton players. He said it would be appropriate not to start any more fights with Southampton. My understanding also is that Southampton didn't budge on a single thing in the Everton deal. If Everton wanted him, they had to pay the piper, so we got £5 million in compensation for him. There is a rumoured clause in the deal that says he can't come back for any other Southampton players. I have no reason to believe that's not in there, because we would have just put him on gardening leave otherwise. So, not to say as a Southampton fan, we were in control from day one. It seems to me that Southampton were prepared, they were ready to let Koeman go. It was a shame it had to go the way it did, because the working relationship was still good, the relationship with the fans was still good, the summer was already decided upon. Koeman had already told the board that you can let Mane go, you can let Wanyama go, but we're keeping Mane no matter what, and the board had already agreed to it. They'd already agreed on Nathan Redmond. It seems that everything was still in place. We were still ready to carry on with Koeman, we still believed it. But obviously, things changed. He tried to play his hand, and the fans turned on him. So he's now at Everton. I don't wish him much luck. I think he'll still do a good job there. But I think Everton are more than welcome to him now. If the kind of money that he's now throwing around, Ashley Williams and Balassi, is what he wanted for Southampton, I'm glad he's gone. Absolutely no problem with that. I think it worked out best for everybody in the end, except maybe for Ronald Koeman.
Well, there you go. I mean, that is as thorough as it gets. Superb stuff, and it's an eye opener. It is an eye opener because, as you say, for going from a manager who is so highly thought of, and I know for a fact, obviously, we have a lot of Arsenal fans who listen to this podcast because of my association with another podcast, etc., and indeed some of the other crew. And I think a lot of Arsenal fans were quite, including me, I have to hold my hands up, were quite keen on the idea of Koeman potentially being a long-term Wenger project, and could still be, let's be fair.
Yeah, I said it from day one. As soon as I saw him go at Southampton, I said he could be a future Arsenal manager. There was nothing stopping him. The thing is that this was a betrayal. This has to be underlined. There's a lot of anger now between Southampton fans and Everton fans But you have to understand the emotion in this, because Ronald Koeman was always seen as the nice guy. You know, he was seen as a dying breed in management, one of those few people that you could trust. He said he was going to be here for 3 years. Damn, he'd be here for 3 years. You know, you ask anyone Koeman's greatest asset, and you would have said he was a humble guy. He was such an honest, approachable person, always presented himself well. You believed everything he said. I said on Twitter at the time, this was the greatest heel turn since Hulk Hogan joined the NWO. I still believe that. It is a betrayal. You know, this has to be underlined, that the animosity now that Southampton fans are going to have for Koeman is personal. It feels like a stab in the back. I would expect Pochettino, in comparison, to be given quite a warm welcome at St Mary's now, because he was never under any illusions. He said from day one, Southampton without Cortese is Southampton without Pochettino. Koeman said from day one, I'm going to be here for my 3 years, and then off he went when the money was flashed. So, you know, this is very, very personal. Southampton fans have got a big grudge against Ronald Koeman now, and it's a shame it's ended the way it has. For me personally, I think it's a shame that it won't affect his image in the public as much as it should, because that, like I say, is a betrayal. It completely prostitutes everything we knew about Ronald Koeman. And for me, it would raise questions over his appropriateness for Barcelona and Arsenal. But I still don't think it's going to do much. I think the media have quashed it, or they haven't done enough digging on it. But there you go. That's, from what I understand, the way it actually went down.
There you go. See, Football Hipsters podcast, always getting the inside scoop, as long as it's the two clubs we support, of course, because we don't know about any other clubs. No, we do, really. But no, that's good stuff. That is good stuff. And obviously, if you're an Everton fan listening to this, or indeed a Southampton fan, tweet us at the FH podcast. Let us know what your thoughts are on what you've got as a manager, or whether you agree with us, whether you disagree. It'd be interesting to hear your thoughts. So do share or leave us a YouTube comment. We'll look out for those. Right. So I mean, that's kind of covers Everton in depth. Just a brief word on your club, obviously, as a Southampton fan. You know, my if you listen to the football the Liga football podcast we did covering the French league, I talked to Rich Allen about Claude Puel, who is the new Saints boss, who I love. I've always had a soft spot for him. He's just such a likable character and vastly experienced. Again, a couple of good additions, I think, in my personal experience of players. Are you quietly confident that you can take on the work left by Koeman and take it to another level?
It's a very, very fine balance. I was when Koeman was leaving, I wasn't too worried about losing Koeman. I was more worried about changing managers this season. I thought it was a really, really bad time to lose a manager. Obviously, we've now got the Europa League to consider as well. It's going to be a fantastic journey, and I'm glad to be able to cover it on the pod as well, because this is the first time Southampton have been in that tournament. It's going to be fantastic for me and for everyone involved in Southampton to be involved in that. So that's brilliant. We want to take it seriously. But the fan base wants a cup. You know, they want a decent cup run, the FA Cup, the League Cup, whatever that is called now. People want to see Southampton achieve something now. So there's a lot of pressure. You know, not only have we got to do well in the Europa League, which I know the board is prioritising. They want a good European run. But obviously the main priority is doing well in the Premier League. So there's a lot to juggle. There's a lot happening. I'm still of the belief that this team is good enough, and the structure of Southampton is good enough to withstand the shock of losing Koeman. I don't know Puel's style yet. I haven't seen it outside of friendlies, so I'm looking forward to seeing how we do against Watford and, you know, the season as it comes. But for me personally, I would take 10th. I know that's a drop down from where we were last season. I would take 10th, getting out of the group stage of the Europa League. That would do me fine. It's a very complicated time to bring in a new manager. So I still think we'll be all right. I still think we'll be fine. We'll be an interesting watch for neutrals, but I wouldn't expect us to be 6th. You know, that's I think is a bit optimistic this season.
Yeah, could well be with the teams we'll discuss in a moment. And yeah, Jeremy Pié, decent bit of business. He's a solid, good pro, decent little right midfielder from Nice, and Nathan Redmond exciting.
Pié, as a striker.
Yes,
he played as a striker.
Puel, Theo Walcott all over again, isn't it?
Yeah, Puel was the one that turned Henry into a striker. Apparently,
absolutely.
He moved him off the wing and said, "You've got the talent to be a striker." So, not to say that Nathan Redmond's going to be Thierry Henry, but I have faith in someone that moved Thierry Henry central to say that if Redmond's going to be a good striker, I believe him.
got the right attributes, pace, directness. Yeah, I agree. If it's just the finishing working on, I think that might work. And I'm excited by Pierre-Emile Højbjerg, who I think Drew spoke highly of previously, and I think he never really got the breakthrough at Bayern, but has always impressed me when I've seen him. So I think he might be an exciting player to watch as well. Just briefly on Everton's business, I just want to ask you on Everton, is the key to them, because again they're another team that's talked about big names and thus far haven't really delivered those. John Stones obviously now is gone. Do you think keeping Lukaku, my favourite, is the vital sort of element to this? I mean, if he goes, do you think that they will really struggle, or is he just another player within this new regime?
I think he's one that Koeman's going to kind of love working with, because Koeman likes to play with the target man. So I think to lose him would be a blow at this point in the window. If it had happened a month ago, they could have done something about it. I know that Everton were in for Pella before he went to China, so I think he'll stay at this point. I think it'd be very tough to lose him now, but I think any success Everton have, because by no means is the fact that Koeman's there. He did well with Southampton, but that's not to say he's going to do as well with Everton, because the setup is completely different at Everton. So I don't expect Everton to turn up trees. I imagine they'll be around 10th as well. But any success they do have, I think it will be Koeman bringing out a bit more from from Lukaku, because Pella, when he first came in, looked average, and Koeman got to work with him and he got acclimatised to his style again, etc., etc. And Pella was very good at times. So Lukaku, I think, will may even add a bit more of a new dimension to his game. So, yeah, I think Lukaku is a player that Koeman will enjoy working with, and definitely if he can get some decent runners off him. I know he's particularly high on Deulofeu as well. So, yeah, he'll probably do well under Koeman and his attacking style.
Yeah, we shall see whether they can resist a big bid from Chelsea, which is rumoured, of course. And we'll come on to teams who have bought back players they released for lesser fees in a moment. But
talk for a little while, because I need a drink.
Do you? I'm not surprised after that. Well, I shall move us on. I'm going to almost group three clubs together here, but we'll talk briefly about each one. Just a brief paragraph on each. But Tottenham Hotspur, Liverpool, and the current Premier League champions Leicester City. Now, I almost feel really bad grouping them in with Spurs and Liverpool, because they probably should have a bit more time on their own. But I'll come on to the reasons why in a minute. But we'll start with Spurs. Obviously had their greatest season in history, tries not to look smug, and ultimately didn't actually achieve anything last season. Tries really hard not to look smug. But putting my biases aside, they obviously did unearth Dele Alli. Harry Kane obviously proved me wrong. He's not a one-season wonder, or at least not at this stage anyway. Added to the squad in good areas. So even the likes of Nacer Chadli and Eric Lamela showed that they were still decent additions to the squad, having been written off previously. This summer, obviously under Pochettino, they've strengthened. Victor Wanyama play, obviously very well. I'm personally not sold at all. Vincent Janssen, I think potentially could be good, although I've not been blown away by pre-season. Not a lot else goings and outgoings for Spurs. So do you think they've got enough to kick on again this season, based on the fact they'll have Champions League football to contend with?
I didn't think they needed too much. They were a good Premier League side last year. Much to your chagrin, I think under Pochettino they're going to be a good unit, and I don't think they needed too much more. Wanyama is a squad player. If he starts, then Pochettino's made a mistake. He played with them enough at Southampton to know that he's an absolute destroyer, but his football brain is nowhere, and you need to be intelligent to play the Pochettino way. So he'll probably be a squad player. Vincent Janssen is one that Drew has told me a little bit about. He sounds like a very Pochettino player. He sounds like a very Tottenham player. Is he going to get the same kind of goals? I doubt it. I hope he doesn't go the same way as Clinton and G did. But it depends completely on how Tottenham try and utilise him, because you'd think Harry Kane would have that space on lockdown. So the Champions League is the only thing that questions Tottenham this year. They've got to stretch the squad a little bit wider, and they've only brought in 2. There's still time, obviously. They're linked to the guy from France, is it Nkulu?
Yes, yeah, that's likely to go through this week. That's how I understand it, anyway.
Right. So if that one happens again, then
Kudu, sorry.
Okay, that's the other one. It's the centre back, isn't it? Yeah,
that's right. Kulu Leon, yeah.
yeah, if that one comes off as well, then they've got a nice array of attacking talent, which would be great. But yeah, I don't think Tottenham are going to be too far off the top four again this season. I think they're a very good team. I think they're well drilled under Pochettino now. But yes, certainly the business doesn't overawe me, but it didn't need to. So
No, fair point. Fair point. However, a club that has done a lot of business leads us nicely on to the crazy world of Jurgen Klopp, who will be thrusting his Liverpool system forward into a 1-1-8 formation next season. Because, frankly, if he doesn't, how the hell is he going to play all these forward players he's signed? Sadio Mane, Jorginho Wijnaldum, Alex Manninger in goal, Loris Karius in goal has come in. Joel Matip, centre back, has come in. He's got Lazar Markovic back from loan, who appears to be getting game times. Marko Grugic from Red Star Belgrade. Luis Alberto from Deportivo La Coruña has come back. Or I think he might be going back out, but still. They've got a rich pickings as far as attacking players goes. You add on Coutinho, Firmino, and Sturridge to that list, of course. Where, how, what? Crazy. Well, I mean, what do you make of you? Yeah, I mean, what do you make of Jurgen Klopp, what he's trying to do? Because he's a very likeable character, but can you play this top heavy if indeed that's what they're going to do?
I have to admit, I have a flirtation with Dortmund. They're my team outside of Europe. I don't follow them religiously because I consider myself Southampton only. I was always brought up to only support one club, but Dortmund were one that I liked on the continent, and he used to talk about heavy metal football. And I watched it in Germany, and I thought it looked great. And then I saw it in the Premier League, and I thought it looked crap. The 5-4 against Norwich is one that stands out to me. That was heavy metal Jurgen Klopp football, and it almost killed them. So this idea, he's been given a new 6-year deal as well, hasn't he? Liverpool are really buying into him, and I'm still really concerned about it because he seems a bit more of a mad scientist than Roberto Martinez was.
That's a brilliant analogy, by the way.
If Roberto Martinez was just a bit more loose and aggressive in the way he did interviews and managed people, he'd be the exact same as Jurgen Klopp, because they just ignore the back line and they just go for it. That's great to watch and it's very entertaining. And against teams that are going to try and sit back and defend, then yeah, great. But if the opponent says, all right, fair enough, we're not going to keep you out, but you're going to score 5, we're going to score 6. Liverpool are in this very strange bracket where they're going to be always a constant threat, but at the same time they could be 4-0 up and I still wouldn't feel like the game was done. They just seem so reckless under Jurgen Klopp, and I just don't think the Premier League is the league to do that. And you can probably get away with it in France. You could get away with it as we proved in Germany. You could get away with it in Holland, maybe even in Spain. At a push, but England probably not. I don't think it's going to be that successful. That's not to say they couldn't surprise people. That's not to say they couldn't get Champions League or maybe even push for the title. But I just worry. I just think that they're going to win some games 4-0, and then they're going to have 6-4s and 3-4s and ridiculous games where Klopp's just gone one step too far. So they'll be fascinating to watch and thoroughly enjoyable. But as a success story, I don't see it.
No, I must admit I'm with you. And that analogy you used, the cartoon Dexter's Laboratory. If you called it Jurgen's Laboratory, had a little sort of Jurgen Klopp kind of caricature, that'd be brilliant. So anyone who's good at Photoshop, please get on that. Superb. Okay, so I'm with you on Liverpool. So let's come to the champions then, Leicester, who've obviously Claudio Ranieri is still there. At time of recording, the only big name departure is that of N'Golo Kante, who of course has departed for Conte's Chelsea. As we speak, Riyad Mahrez is still a Leicester player. In fact, press conference today, Ranieri said no, he's not for sale, and tried to sort of bluff the reporters and say, well, will you tell me who's interested, because we've had no bids. I'm not sure I believe that. Arsenal and Chelsea are said to be getting quite the scent of Riyad, which is quite an alarming version of views, but or images, I should say. But they kept Jamie Vardy, of course, who, let's be honest, essentially turned down the move to Arsenal. So what do you make of them? Are you buying into the idea that I think almost everyone has, that Champions League football is going to stretch them to the limit where they end up mid-table this season?
Yeah, I think last season was an aberration. It was a brilliant one, and I'd love to see it again. Part of you says, well, why can't they do it again? because they haven't changed that much. All they've lost is Kante, and by all accounts, Napolis Mendy is going to be a great replacement for him. So, you can't honestly say that you can discount them from another title challenge or another top six because you've got no evidence for it. But it's just that bit in the back of your head that just says there's no way. The Champions League will surely be a fantastic ride for Leicester. I think the fans will want to see them do well in it because it's probably the only chance they've got. It's a free swing. If Leicester can get out of the group stage, that's incredible. That's history in the making. So they're going to be another fascinating watch. They're going to be so fun to watch. I think they'll have a lot of neutrals on their side again. I think the danger, though, is they've got to be careful not to get dragged into something a little lower down the league. That's not to say I think they will, but they are still a squad that is built and are successful because of their unity. It's not because the players individually are all brilliant, like a Man United or even a Liverpool. So they have to be careful that if things start to get a bit wobbly mid-season, that they don't start to get dragged under by some of the clubs that want it a little bit more because they're having too much fun in Europe, etc. But no, I think it's a great achievement for them to have won the league last year. Like I say, it's a free swing. Go for it. See what you can do. I don't think they'll go down. So have some fun. Try again next year.
Yeah, fair analogy. I can almost hear Claudio saying those words. Just go out there, have fun. Dilly ding, dilly dong. Okay, so that's just a couple left then. And let's go on to. Oh, where should we go? Manchester United. Putting aside the fact that they have a new manager, who is an odious tyke, in my humble opinion, putting it politely. I'm not a fan of Mourinho, but the one thing you can't deny about him is he wins trophies. He often destroys clubs in the process, seemingly, but he doesn't half win trophies, and he has a winning habit, shall we say. He's got into the market with 4 big signings. Henrik Mkhitaryan from Dortmund, I think, is a good piece of business. Eric Bailly, so far from Villarreal, has looked the part, although I must admit I'm not convinced at this stage. And of course, my heart broke when I saw the name Zlatan Ibrahimovic appear in the Manchester United tabloids, but that was always going to happen. And then the other night they decided to bring back one of their former youth players who's gone on and not really done much and turned up for 90 million pounds. Paul Pogba, or Pogback, as the terribly painful tweets were depicting the other night. What do you make of where Manchester United are? What do you make of Pogba coming back in all this sort of glitz and glamour? And again, is this a marriage made in heaven with Mourinho and United, or could it end up going the Chelsea route?
Of course it's good. It's Mourinho. I should stress, though, I like Mourinho. I've never had a problem with Mourinho. I think he's fantastic quality, and he's always good fun. I didn't understand the fuss with the fitness coach last season. That was just 2 people doing their job, and they happened to butt heads as far as I was concerned. I don't think it was that big. But obviously it spiralled, and we all had our chance to laugh at Chelsea and whatever else. But I've always liked Mourinho, but that's just me. Ibrahimovic, great bit of business. I'm looking forward to seeing him because I've never seen him before. I know his reputation, but I don't watch foreign football because I don't like the style. So I'm loving the chance to see Ibrahimovic. I know I'm not going to see him at his peak, but he's still going to be fantastic entertainment. Mkhitaryan, it's great to see him in the Premier League as well. I think he's a great talent. I think he could do well here. The only one I don't like is Pogba. I don't get where the fees come from. I don't get why everyone's so hyped on him. I saw him at the Euros. I see him occasionally for Juventus. Clearly, there's a lot of talent there. Clearly, there's a lot of potential. He's only 23. He's got time to realise it all. But I don't think he's that much different from Balotelli. He has it in flashes. He can be very impressive. And then the next week, he's nowhere. That's my understanding of Pogba. So I hope I'm wrong. I'd love to see him do something brilliant and be a staple in the Premier League for another 10 years, and et cetera, et cetera. But I don't get 90 million. I don't get the fuss over Pogba. It'll be interesting to see him up close. But for me, it's a fine season for Man United. They look scary again. That's the one thing they haven't looked in a good few years now. But they have a starting 11 that I look at now and go, oh, geez, how are we going to handle that guy and that guy? So Mourinho will do fine with them. He will push the envelope. He'll get them in the top 4. They'll be a big force again. But the Pogba thing, I don't get it myself.
No, intimidating, definitely the word I think from their squad rebuilding. And I can imagine now some people will give you some heat for the Balotelli comparison, but I totally get what you're saying. And as a man who has watched plenty of Paul Pogba over the years, and indeed John, of course, has John Welsh for Juventus. I've seen him a lot for France. I'm with you. He's an immensely talented footballer, but an immensely talented footballer who thinks way too much of himself at too young an age, who has arguably taken on too much responsibility, which in fairness is not his fault, but he's embraced it. He doesn't shy away from it. And he's essentially a £90 million player without a position. And I'll just leave that quote hanging. And if anyone doesn't understand what I mean, do drop me a tweet and I'll send you an essay. Because in my opinion, he still doesn't know what, if any, his best position is. So that will be very interesting to see where they use him. But we shall see how that marriage develops. But yes, as for Zlatan, he'll get 20 plus goals a season. I don't doubt that at all. Right, couple more to go then. We've only got 3 left. My God, how it goes time-wise. Let's look at a team that's closest to my heart, shall we? Because it'd be very biased if I left them till last. Let's look at the Arsenal. Same old story, Ross. Same old story. It's another summer of mixed quotes from manager, from chief executive, from supporters warring on Twitter and other social media. Constant reports of players coming in and ultimately not a lot happening. Then the inevitable pre-season injuries. We've had it all. Again, from a non-biased perspective, where do you see Arsenal? Because I'm obviously the ultimate optimist every season, but I genuinely don't think the squad we have is that bad. But I do still worry about that centre-back position and the lack of that other centre-forward to compete with Giroud.
No, I don't think Arsenal are that bad. I just don't think they're that good. You know, you need something extra. It was obvious from watching it last season that there was still something missing. There was that extra mile you needed to make up. If Leicester could find it and Arsenal couldn't, then questions have to be asked. So the only big name one is Granit Xhaka. Asano is another one for the future. He'll probably get a few games here and there, but you know, you buy a 21-year-old centre forward, you can't expect him to be beating Giroud and even Walcott to the centre forward position. Rob Holding is one that I know from days in the Championship. I think he's going to be a very good player if he gets the experience, which I doubt at Arsenal, unfortunately. But there's still a couple of weeks to go. Obviously, there's still rumours about Riyad Mahrez, Alexander Lacazette. If they could pull off one of them, then brilliant. I think that is what they are missing. They are after that next attacking forward. That if Sanchez goes missing or if Giroud has a bad game, there's still someone else that can unlock a door. But I just think that Arsenal are still that one step below. They just seem to be. Again, I used this analogy to you the other day off air. I said that Arsenal are continually building a team for 5 years in the future, and then never putting that team together and giving them the chance to grow. And again, it just seems like they're doing that. 23, 21, 20 are the ages of the players they brought in. Xhaka will get some games. Asano, I doubt. Rob Holding, I doubt. Unless he gets a very good run at the start of the season with your centre back injuries. So I do like Arsenal. I've been around Arsenal for a good year now with podcasts and my association with you guys. So I like them. I hope you do well, and I can't imagine you won't finish anywhere outside of the top 4. But no, as for winning the title, as for challenging for the top 2, you're going to have to bank on teams around you slipping up like they did last year. I just don't see that happening again this year.
No, fair comments, and I agree with you. I think people know my love affair with Lacazette, but I think he, for me, is the signing. If you can't get a Mahrez or you can't get a big fish, he's the next big fish I would pick, and I think he's perfect. And there is a bit of talk today at time of recording that Shokran Mustafi, the German international defender, is on the way. So at least that's something for Arsenal fans to be happy with for 24 hours before returning to all-out war on each other once again.
It would only be fair, Kris, for me to ask how you think the season's going to go. Optimistic? I'm sure you are.
I am. I'm always optimistic, Ross, much to my probably stupidity. But I do think your comments are very fair. I can't deny that there is a bit of negligence as far as the transfer window goes. I am one of those people that always says that I don't believe you have to buy to be successful. But what I do believe you have to do is you have to test what you've already got. And if that means buying players to compete with what you've already got, to drive them to another level, that is something that you do need to do. And I think the thing that concerns me the most really about Arsenal is not so much what we're not doing, but more what other clubs are doing. And that's my concern, that we could be getting left behind again. And I have my concerns, but I remain optimistic. So I think I'm with you. A top four finish, anything above third is a huge season, given what we're competing against.
As long as it's above Tottenham.
Oh yeah, well, I mean that's a standard, to be fair, but yes, that'll bite me in the ass one day. But yeah, no, I think maybe we might have a little tilt at the Champions League this year. I'm not saying win it, but I think our fancy is to get a bit further than we have done in previous years. We shall see. We shall see. But that's my views. Two to go then. We'll go for... Who should we go for next? Let's go for Chelsea, because I think everyone wants to talk about Pep and City in a minute. So we'll do Chelsea next. Antonio Conte is in. Not a lot of movement. There's been a bit of unrest, actually, amongst Chelsea fans on the internet. Again, people rowing on the internet. Who'd have thought? But a few Chelsea fans are a little bit dismissive of what they've done. Obviously, Michy Batshuayi is probably the big signing of the summer for them, who I know a fair bit about. Not a great deal else, though, in truth, for Chelsea. And I don't know whether... Do you think they're keeping their powder dry? We mentioned N'Golo Kante, of course. We should mention him again. But do you think they're keeping their powder dry, or do you look at some of those lone players coming back? I particularly look at Juan Cuadrado. And apparently Victor Moses has been brilliant in pre-season. Now, I didn't actually realise... I'm right in saying he's still a Chelsea player, aren't I? Or is he a West Ham player?
He was loaned to West Ham. I don't know if that was a permanent deal or not.
Do you know, I'll look that up, but apparently he's been brilliant in pre-season. But if he's not a Chelsea player, completely ignore that comment. However, Juan Cuadrado is one that is impressed in pre-season. So, I mean, where are Chelsea and what is their goal? Because with this new manager, I think they're going to change everything about how they play, formation, the lot. So where do you think they are right now?
Yeah, we'll probably come to predictions for top and bottom at the end of this, but my head says that Chelsea will be top of the league by the end of the year. I think that Conte is going to combat the influx of attacking talent that's come in, especially to Man City and Man United, with very good solid defending. Michy Batshuayi is a player you'll know better than I, but I think he's a good player on the counter. He seems very quick and very athletic. And N'Golo Kante, we all know him now. He's going to screen that back line. I think he and Matic can be impervious. So that I'm looking forward to seeing. I think Cuadrado is a new signing. Essentially, he did brilliantly at Juventus. Obviously, Mourinho didn't think too highly of him, but I think Conte, who will have had first-hand experience of what he's like over at Juve, will be able to give him some more game time. So I think he's essentially a new signing. I like Chelsea. I like their setup. I think if there were complaints about Mourinho being boring, then we'll have to scale down, because Conte is probably going to attack this division as a bit more of a defensive manager and try and grind out results. Fine by me, but it's not a great spectator sport, I appreciate. So, yeah, I like Chelsea. I like the way they've done their business. It's not something you'll hear me say often. I like Chelsea. But this season, I think, is a very good time to bring in a manager like Conte. I think if they'd done it last season, they wouldn't have got very far. But this season, with the influx of attacking talent, why not? You know, they're in a good position.
Yeah, I hate to agree with you again, but I'm going to have to. I think Chelsea are the sleeper team of the top four. I think they are that side. There's not been a lot talked about pre-season, but a fit and firing Eden Hazard is scary. Diego Costa's situation seems to be up in the air, but I think Batshuayi will get goals. And I can confirm Victor Moses is still at Chelsea. He's been on loan. He's been on loan at West Ham last season, of course, and at Stoke prior to that. But by all accounts, from what I've read and from what I've seen, he's been brilliant in pre-season. So
let's not forget also that Fabregas will probably be further forward. Probably be the number 10 at this point. So
yes.
With Matic and Kante screening. So if he's further forward, that opens up a whole new dimension they weren't really getting under Mourinho. So yeah, I think they're a very, very interesting side.
And no matter what any Arsenal fan will tell you, Cesc Fabregas is a world-class midfielder. End of story, I'm afraid. So, yes, I agree. Okay, so that nicely brings us to the end with one side to go. And it's probably, along with Manchester United, I would suggest, the club that everyone's going to be looking at to see how the Pep Guardiola era comes into play with Manchester City, who we will wrap up on talking about. As we say, Guardiola is in. It was the worst kept secret in history, wasn't it? Until he finally announced that he was leaving Bayern to join the revolution at City. Business has been kind of mixed. Started quietly, and then all of a sudden they've seemed to have signed a lot of players. John Stones, £47 million is frankly scary. Leroy Sané from Schalke, who of course Drew would have touched on in our pod with the Bundesliga show yesterday. Along with that, Marlos Moreno and Gabriel Jesus are probably longer-term signings. And then Ilkay Gundogan and Nolito, the Spanish international, also coming in. Quite a few players that you would expect to be challenging for first-team places. I want to change the sort of question to you round a bit, though, and say, how quickly do you think that the Guardiola style, as well as the new signings, can settle? Because we've already seen the likes of Joe Hart rumoured to not be completely comfortable with the new style. So how much is it going to be to get this working for Guardiola to change the whole style of this club?
I think it's going to be very tough myself. I said this even last season, that I don't think the Guardiola style, as we saw it in Spain and Germany, is going to translate properly in England. And I know he's addressed these criticisms as well, and he said he's interested to see how it's going to go, and he's ready to change if needs be. But I just don't see it. You know, it's the same with the machine gun football that Liverpool want to play. It's a style that I just don't think suits England. If he can get it working, brilliant. Because if he can, then I'd be fascinated to see how English teams try and negotiate it. But at the moment, I think that Man City are going to hit a wall against the smaller teams like Burnley. You know, I could be proven hideously wrong, and they could put 7 past them the first time they meet them because they're just that kind of club. But I get the feeling that teams like Burnley, teams like Bournemouth are gonna see the Man City threat and say, fair enough, you want the ball, that's all right, we don't mind. You know, the European style is always on the ball. In England, we're okay with not having the ball. I'd be so interested to see West Brom play Man City. I think that's going to be a great game as a tactical standpoint. I still think Pep will do very well. I still think this is the foundations of a club that is going to be big for 4 or 5 seasons yet before they bring in a new manager and you know, move on to another style. It's interesting groundwork they've laid down, but I think the Premier League is not a stretch too far for Pep, but I certainly don't think that he is as prepared as he was for Spain and Germany.
I would completely agree with that, and once again, we agree a lot on this podcast, but it's true. I have never truly bought into the Pep Guardiola. I don't even know what to call it. Cult? That's a bit harsh, but don't get me wrong. I think he speaks well. Watching, I don't know if you've seen the Manchester City put a lot of their training videos on YouTube. They're a very open club when it comes to putting things on social media, and watching some of the things Guardiola does in training, and that genuinely is fascinating. And I'm told his book is very good, and I will read it eventually.
Yes, I've read his book actually. That's a very interesting read.
There we go. So, I mean, you know, I'm not slating the guy, and I'm not saying what he hasn't done hasn't been brilliant and successful. It has. There's no denying it's on paper. I just wonder, and I know this is the obvious thing to say, I don't feel like he's had a real test at either Barcelona or Bayern Munich. I really don't. If you talk to people who, we spoke to Ross yesterday, Ross Dunbar on the Bundesliga preview show, and he was saying similar, that you know the Bayern Munich fans, they're not that bothered that he's gone, and he turned a lot of people very happy, but he also made a lot of people rather sort of frowny, shall we say. You know, not completely convinced by how he was treating things. There was all this issue with the club's doctors, the German doctors, that he binned out, you know, unceremoniously, and you know he's very much a pure firebred manager, and I don't know if that will sit well with all those City players. But I mean, we shall see. It will be fascinating to watch, and of course, the Mourinho Guardiola confrontation, I think, is probably the best word I'm going to use. It's going to be, there'll be a lot of cameras on that. So
I think the only thing I can say with certainty is that Pep is going to hate the British media.
I completely agree with you.
I think he's going to suffer for that. It wouldn't surprise me if after 2 seasons they get, you know, second twice or something, and they've quote unquote underachieved. It would not surprise me if after 2 seasons he decided to go because of the media. That wouldn't shock me at all.
No, I'm with you. Very, very intrusive as far as the accessibility goes, and it's very different to how it's been at his previous two clubs. So I'm with you on that one, absolutely. So there you go. So that is our very in-depth preview to the Premier League, and I think we've covered pretty much all ground. We do have time for a couple of little bits of any other business. We've got two listener questions first of all. Apologies to our lovely listeners. We did put a tweet out quite late, but you'll have plenty of time to ask questions during the season, so don't panic. But we did get two in. We had Jacaresque, one of our loyal followers. That's Jacaresque. Everyone has money. Everyone wants a trophy. Only so many to win. Will the FA and EFL Cups be the goal for mid-table clubs? He wants to know.
I think it should be, because I think that's why clubs on the continent do so well in Europe. You look at Spain as an example. I know Tom loves the fact that Spain always annihilate teams in Europe, but that's because domestically the cups are locked down. It's Barcelona, Real Madrid, and Atletico. They win all the cups, so the chances they get are out in Europe. So I would love to see teams prioritise the cups, especially the Europa League. I might be a bit biased in saying that, but it would be great to see some clubs prioritising them. I think it's good for the domestic leagues. I think it's good for us in Europe as well.
I think that's a very fair answer, and the cup competitions are often played down, but everyone likes a trophy at the end of the day, don't they? So I'm with you on that one. And the other question we had was from Alexei Otonen, who's another regular listener. He's at Scruffkin. Mainstream media, good question. This mainstream media seems to think that the big name managers can turn a team almost instantaneously into a title favourite. Your thoughts?
Depends on the setup at the club, because you look at a club like Southampton, who lost Pochettino, and then we was all said in the papers, you're going to get relegated, it's too much change. The thing is, with the way Southampton is set up backstage, you can pick up any member of the first team, of the backroom staff, of the management, you can pick them up, you can move them out, you can put someone new in, and it will still keep ticking. If you do that elsewhere, it's going to be a lot harder. Now, you'd like to think somewhere like Man United are in a position where you can pick up Van Gaal, take him out, put Mourinho in, and you can carry on ticking. Same with Man City. They've had enough time to build now. I think the owner has put in more than £1 billion into that club, so you'd like to think they're in a similar situation. But depends on the manager, depends on the setup. If one of those is off kilt, then it falls away. So for me, I don't think it's as much the manager as I think it is everything that's around. You think of Leicester. You think of Ranieri when he came in. He didn't change anything, did he? Didn't bring in his own staff, tied everyone down to new contracts, kept everyone as were, and they moved on. They progressed again, but that's only because he kept everything as was. I don't think Pep's done too much. I don't think Mourinho's done too much either. So maybe, but it's by no means a guarantee. It all depends how they react with their new club. David Moyes threw out a couple of coaches when he went to Man United, completely disrupted the flow, and he ended up getting the sack. So it's doable. It's always doable, but it depends a lot on circumstance and structure.
Yeah, good answer, and it's a good question. That's two very good questions, actually. So thank you to both those gentlemen for sending those in, and again, thank you to all of our loyal listeners. As we mentioned in our other preview pods we've done, we've picked up quite a few new listeners for various different platforms over the Euros, and hoping to build our audience still further. So if you want to help us do that, you can do. You can give us a 5-star review on iTunes if you like us. If you don't, then you could give us a 1-star, but that would just be cruel. So just don't listen if you don't like us. That'll be nicer. But if you do like us, give us a 5-star review on iTunes. Leave us a comment on one of our YouTube videos if you like. Tweet us at the FH Podcast. Or just generally tell your friends about us. And that's really like 1994 of me to say that. But people do still talk. What is it? They call it like water cooler moments, where people are just stood around at work and they go, oh, listen to this podcast. And you never know how many people you get from that. So if you like what we do tell your friends, if indeed you have friends, because we don't. Right. Ross, let's just get our listeners up to date with how they can join a fantasy league that we're doing, because try as we could, we couldn't find one that incorporated all the European teams, because they're all done in like their own languages, so it's a bit difficult. So we're just going to stick to the good old faithful Premier League. So for all of our foreign listeners, we do apologise, but if you want to join the Foreign Fantasy Football League, Ross, how do they do it?
If you go to our official Twitter account, which is of course at the FH Podcast, if you scroll down a bit through some of the preview pods, I'm sure we'll be posting it again. Just to bump it up, there is a tweet with a join code. I believe it's the official Premier League one we've joined, isn't it?
Yes, it is. Yeah.
Yeah, I've just got it up now. Yeah, it's the official Premier League one. So yeah, you can go and find that tweet, go and find the code, come and join up, and watch me crash and burn like I did in the Euros.
Yeah, joining me, of course. Although I did all right the Euros one, really.
Yeah, I was about to say I should be more fair to myself. I did recover, but
you did very, very well in the end. And we should say, of course, to our winner of the Euros, we haven't forgotten you, sir. I swear. I know you think we've forgotten you, but I promise you we haven't. It's Jabroni Ellsbury, who was the triumphant winner of our Euros. Our Euros fantasy, and as I say, I promise you, we've not forgotten you, sir. The main issue we're having is that you might find this hard to believe. We're not paid to do this podcast. We do it for fun, and we're all very busy bees. And I myself have 2 jobs, so we've had a lot going on. So once everything settles down again, we will get you a prize. I promise.
We're trying to decide. We're trying to decide between a Pez dispenser and one of those pens, which if you turn upside down, all the clothes fall off.
Or we could just send in one of those pens, those ones where you press down for green or down for red or down for black. Oh, those
are cool though.
They're great, aren't they? Yeah. So basically, Jabroni, what we're saying is you living in America is a pain, and it's all your fault. No, it's not. Of course, it's really not. But I think he's in America. Yes, he is. He's in. I'm looking at his email now. He's in Arizona. I think that is AZ. That's Arizona, isn't it?
Yeah, that rings a bell.
Yeah, hopefully it is. If it's not, then sorry.
But price is in Arizona.
Yes. What we wanted to ask you, actually, Jabroni, if you do listen to this, please let us know who you support, because we might be getting you a prize of something to do with the team you support. So do let us know. Do write in, as the old saying goes. But yes, do join our fantasy league, and we promise you we will get prizes for people who win stuff. So there we go. Right, okay. The only other thing, Plug Ross, is you and I will be back on Sunday. At time of recording, this is Thursday the 11th of August. So this coming Sunday, the first Sunday of the Premier League, you and I will be back to reignite our English breakfast passions. We have a podcast called the Football Hipsters English Breakfast, which is our review of the weekend's action. We recorded on a Sunday, so unfortunately we're not going to get is it Chelsea West Ham on Monday, isn't it?
Yeah, it's Chelsea West Ham.
So unfortunately, Chelsea and West Ham fans, we won't get to cover you straight away this season, but all the rest of them we will. And our good friend Danny, hopefully, will be along with us for the ride several times this season as well. And Ross, I know you've got a few new segments you're going to be debuting, so we'll put you to the test for those as well.
Yeah, funny little rhymes with my name again, but yes, we'll make it work.
It's got to be done. It's got to be done. Right, before we leave then, I'll ask you a few predictions because we always like to do these, don't we? So who wins the league, who finishes in the Champions League spaces, and who goes down?
I hate doing these so much. Okay, so my head says the champions will be Chelsea. My heart says it will be Man City. The top 4... Chelsea, City, Arsenal, and probably Man United. I fancy Mourinho to turn that around. Europa League, I imagine, will be Tottenham and Liverpool. If there's a cup that bumps it down, then I suspect that will be to West Ham because they don't have the same kind of distractions that Leicester and Southampton do. The bottom 3, at the moment, I'm going to say Hull, Middlesbrough, and...
You're going to say Bournemouth, aren't you?
Yeah, I'm going to say Bournemouth, but I don't want to because I still think they're a very good team, and I'm going to look like a complete idiot when they're finished 12th or something because they're just that good as a unit. But yeah, I just worry for them. So yeah, I think I'm going to have to go with Bournemouth.
Fair enough. Well, I'll go backwards, forwards, if you will. So my relegated clubs. For me, finally, after all these years, Tony Pulis is getting relegated. I've decided. So sorry, West Brom fans, but I think West Brom will go. I think Hull will go, and I think I'm gonna go really, really rogue here. Excuse me. I'm gonna go really, really rogue here. Crystal Palace. I just think the Pardew thing has its time, and you will know as well as I do on that one. I'm not convinced that they will have the season they've had previously, and I do fancy that Middlesbrough and Burnley will have enough to stay up. So the only other one I worry about is Swansea, but I'll stick with my guns. I'll say Palace, And I'll say, I don't know how none of us picked Sunderland, interesting that.
Mm.
But yes, no, I'll go with West Brom, Palace and Hull for me. So we shall see. Europa League, well, I'll say firstly champions, I think Chelsea as well. I think Man City, Arsenal, Man United make up the top four. I think fifth and sixth, is that both Europa, fifth and sixth?
Fifth is guaranteed. I think sixth and seventh depend on the cups.
I'll say Liverpool in fifth, and for me, Everton gets sixth. I know you don't want to hear that. So
good season for me. We'll be finishing above Everton.
Which, of course, means that I think Spurs will finish seventh. Sorry, Spurs fans. But I just don't think that they will achieve what they did last year. I could be completely wrong. I hope I'm not, but I don't think they'll achieve what they did last year. So there you go. So yeah, I'll go Chelsea, I'll go Man City, I'll go Arsenal third, and Man United fourth. So we shall see. So there we go. There's our predictions done. So that's it from us then, Ross. That's another one done. 4 became 2, but I think we did enough. I think we covered enough for our lovely listeners. So well done to you, and thank you very much for stepping in once again.
No problem.
I shall be back in your ear on Sunday with our listeners with the return of the English breakfast. So do get your questions in early if you have any. Keep the feedback coming. Keep those downloads coming. We do appreciate all of you listening. If you haven't already, do check out the Bundesliga preview pod that we put up yesterday, which is with Ross Dunbar, who's an excellent German journalist living in Cologne. He was really good guest to have on. Also, Rich Allen, myself chatted about Liga earlier on in the week, and of course myself and Ross had a little chat about the EFL last week as well. We will be previewing La Liga and Serie A as well. They start a bit later, so they're likely to be next week. I know Tom's working on a guest, and myself and John are working on a guest for the Italian one, so keep tuned. Right, that's it from us then. We'll return on Sunday. Good luck to anyone following a Premier League team this season. All the best with the Fantasy League. We have been the Football Hipsters, and we'll be back in your ears very soon.